Yeah, it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, and look at that panel. Just let it bask in the light here. It's a beautiful panel. Super little complicated panel. It looks like nothing, but it was a real bugger. And I finished up the flanges and got them all shrunk and everything. And I'll show you what we had to do. In order to shrink this, that was a major problem, and to get that to come over. So the first step was to get it to come over. We'll talk about this one first, though, because this one was easier. But in the process of getting it over, we bugged this up a little bit. So it still needs a little bit of shrinking disc right here. So I made this tool. I had some of this nice ash wood, and I did this before that flange was in there. And this tool was made off of that number 4 front gauge there. And that enabled me, by putting that in the vise, to square up this edge pretty nice and to smooth this a little bit. It still needs a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to use the shrinking disc on it. So next came creating this flange. And at last we left it, it was out here somewhere. And I thought I was going to have trouble using the shrinker, but turned out it wasn't that bad, because I've got a special 45-degree shrinker. But a few people commented, well, what if you don't have that 45-degree shrinker? And I'll show you what you need to do with that. So in order to get this edge in the nice shape, I had to create this little hammer form. And this was a piece of ash that I had in my collection. And it needed that roll on this edge right here. So I had to take a plane. I could have ground it, but I took a plane and I just kept planing it until it had this similar roll here. And then the board just happened to have a warp in it, so I had to put this piece of angle iron on here. And you know, it made it complex, and then I've got it mounted in 2 vices, so it's nice and solid. And it has to go right like that. And then taking the slapper, we slapped that edge down. And what was happening as you slap that edge down, remember we had the blue tape here, it wanted to roll over, so we were losing our definition, and we were losing our radius over here, the proper gauge position. And it was a real bugger. So I wasn't getting the sharpness that I wanted there. So I decided I'm going to need some steel in order to do that. So I went and made this over here. So I have this little workstation here that was all threaded. I picked it up at the scrapyard probably 30 years ago. And it has 1/2-inch 13 threads in it. And I had this piece of scrap here from an acquisition a couple years ago. And I said, well, all I got to do is take that number 1 gauge, which is this curve here, traced it on here, and I bandsawed it a little bit, and I had to grind it. And that allowed me to go like this. The problem is this has so much length right here. You needed something cantilevered out in order for it to work. So I was able to planish it good right there like that. And in the process, we had to tune this radius up again with the shrinker. So this is a channel die. I've showed this before, I think, in one of the other videos, but it's a lifesaver on a situation like this. And that enables you to get in. If I was 90 degrees, unless this was really cantilevered out, and most of the shrinkers aren't, I'm building another one. I don't even think that one will be cantilevered out that much. So this saves you, so I can get that in there like that, and I was able to tune that curve again. And it's got a really nice curve to it. So let's go over to the fender. So here's the fender. And it has that crease dent right here. That'll have to come out, and that's actually, most of it will be cut out when we cut this out. And it has this little dent. We got to deal with that. And you can see how this fits on here now. You know, that fits on there pretty nice. So the problem here now is this front edge is all distorted, so it's not allowing me to go back. So I'm going to cut this out. Now when you cut this out, you don't want to cut it to size, This is a temporary line I put here from essentially cut to size, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's correct yet because we've got this obstruction and everything here. So what I want to do is I put this preliminary line in, and this will give me a seat rest that I can rest this panel on, and I can clamp it. And now the issue is when you put this in, what if you weld it up here or down below? You want to weld that in exactly the right position, meaning this curve is absolute right, correct. So I had Mark go back to the other Scout we have. That's why I bought a couple of them too, is because it allows you to have the information. You need this information. It's absolutely essential. If you've only got one Scout or one car that you're doing, you have to have somebody hopefully close by that you can borrow some of this information from. So this was made off of the other Scout fenders, which are really nice at the top. And you see right here, we got a little rocky going because this is crunched down here, and there's a little void on here. But we checked both the left and right fender on that other brown Scout that we have, which is also a 66. And Mark did a nice job. It's got a nice curve. And I do have a set of sweeps, but a set of sweeps is useless on a situation like this. You need to make these gauges. The sweeps wouldn't have worked with any of these gauges. The sweeps do come in handy on some things, but I find that making your own gauges out of cardboard, and it only takes a little bit of time, and you label them, and if you're ever going to do that project again, like we'll hang these up somewhere, and we'll have this information, even the tooling that we made, hopefully we'll use it again on another Scout. So this gives us the proper positioning of where that panel has to be. So when this is registered on the back right here, that tells me exactly where this has to be in the front. So I'm going to cut this out preliminary. Now I was hoping I was going to be able to weld this in or at least tack it in, but I think all I'm going to be able to do is cut this out. I want to take some of this dent out and some of this out before we get into a position where we're going to do the final trim for the weld trim. But let's do some rough cutting here. So I'm just going to take a cutoff wheel, and we don't have to do it on camera. Everybody knows how a cutoff wheel works. Everybody loves the sparks, I guess, but it's pretty much a waste of time. It's just a matter of cutting on this blue line here, and that will free this whole thing up. So I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll fit that panel on there. All right, there's the preliminary cut. We have that off. And this is the interface that's spot welded onto the fender flange. And this interface allows it to bolt up to that front body panel. So this is spot welded on, and we're going to have to make a new one of these, of course. And it goes up into here. And we're probably going to have to look at another fender to find out exactly what we need to make for that, because I don't know if there's enough information there. It's pretty rancid, so yeah, it's all missing up here. So we're going to have to dope that out. And once we get that interface off, then we're going to find out that we're probably going to, yeah, there's a couple holes through here. So we're going to have to replace the nose of this here. And we might do that first before we even weld this on. That might be a good idea to do that. So it needs a little strip right here. It's not that hard a panel to make. And most of that's all going to be hand work with a little tipping wheel work. And then there'll be a little bit of rust removal up here unless I bring it over further. I could bring it over further and eliminate that rust removal. So we'll make that decision up after. So it's just too much work right now to get this all fit in, because like I said, I'm going to have to make this front piece. It looks that's the obvious thing that should happen. But we get this front piece in, we get this in, then all we have to do is that back piece and a few more, little bit of dent work and a little bit of rust work. And then this fender, after we get it all welded and metal finished, will be essentially a finished fender. Now, we're not going to prime these right away. We're going to leave them all bare metal. We want to see this all together as a bare metal deal, and we don't fear it being rusted or anything because number one, it'll only rust generally in New England in August. That's when you get a lot of humidity. If you have doors open in the shop, the humidity will come in and it'll rust. But I mean, it's not going to rust a lot. It's just you spray on some phosphoric acid that we get from Home Depot, and 2 minutes it's all cleaned up. You can actually bring it out and hose it out and let the sun dry it, and it's perfect. So until we get everything all lined up and all the panels nice and smooth, we won't put any type of primer on this at all. We'll keep it totally clear metal or bare metal. So I did mention that if you were making that panel and you didn't have that fancy shrinker, which most people are not going to have it, how could you do that? Well, just like I did, you're going to have to make a hammer form essentially to get this. This needs to be a straight edge right here, and it doesn't butt up against the hood. Actually, the hood is higher here. It's kind of an odd join there, the way that International did that. But I think it looks really neat. It gives it the character of the Scout. It's a rough farm work vehicle. It's not a Ferrari or anything. So if you were going to do this without a fancy shrinker, I mean, you could use, on this end here, a standard Lancaster shrinker is what you get at Home Depot. They clone those. The Home Depot would have shrinker, I mean, not the Home Depot, Harbor Freight, I'm sorry. The Lancaster, which is what Harbor Freight clones, that would have worked fine here. I have the stipple dies, which don't leave the little straight cut file marks like on there, but that's not a big deal if it did. The only time those Lancasters really don't do a good job is when you're stretching aluminum. It'll break the aluminum really easy because it puts those little straight marks in it, and if you go too aggressive, it'll just crack the aluminum right out. The stipple will too. Again, you have to go a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. So if you want to stretch on aluminum, it's a lot better sometimes to put it in a planishing hammer with a linear stretch die and stretch it out like that, or you can do it manually. But as I was saying, if you didn't have that 45-degree angle shrinker die, which is actually a pretty rare thing, I was lucky to get it years ago, and it comes in handy quite often. What you would have to do for the best would be to make a steel plate, and a piece of 1/4-inch steel would be okay. And that would mean you have to grind that little radius in here and a little relief on it. And with that plate, you'd be able to slap this over, and you could take the torch, and this would gather up a little bit, and you hold it down on the plate. It would have the right curve, and you'd have to use the torch to knock all those shrinks down, the spontaneous gathers that would happen. They wouldn't be in major because this isn't much, but this panel is a real little bugger. I mean, I couldn't do it without that tooling that I made, and I spent about at least 2, maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 hours, but it's hard to tell because I had some visitors today, so I had a lot of time with the visitors. So, but I would say easily 2 hours making the steel plate and the wood and getting it all set up in the vices and everything, and having the steel plate on that threaded plate over there, the heavy threaded plate. You can always find some situation where you can clamp it to the bench or something. I just luckily have that threaded plate. So if you did that, you could get this line in. It's very easy to bug this up. I bugged this up a little bit here, but it's not bad. So I try to put it in the planishing hammer, and oftentimes even putting it in the planishing hammer, it makes it worse sometimes. So like I said, I'm going to have to put the shrinking disc on this. And all the gauges are fitting nice, and the flexible shape pattern, I'll throw that on there so you can see what that looks like. So again, this was made off of the brown fender on the other Scout. So I'll put this on, and this has the addition now of that inner flange. Mark added that inner flange on there, and you can see that fits really nice. So really happy, and all the gauges are really, really close. So it's a good panel. It's going to work. You can see how nice and tight that is. There's no gap or anything. That means we have the right area value. So I think that's all we're going to be able to do tonight. I was hoping to get this welded in, but it's getting late again. So next week, Mark won't be back till Monday. I'll have to figure out how I'm going to make this here. One of the other Fenders might have the information, or maybe I can dope it out from this, because this is a straight line. So I got to figure out the total length I need. I can put this back in, and that's a 90-degree bend right there. And then it just basically comes down, and all that information is there to about here, so I might have to kind of dope that out. So we have that gauge, the big long gauge, and this will fit in like this now. Okay. Got to knock this flange back a little bit, it's in the way. Knock that back. So this will get fit into place. We can clamp it, be able to bring clamps in over here and put this gauge here like this and get that all flowing really nice. Not only flowing that way, but we'll make a gauge on this front here going all the way down to here, registering on here, and that will set this attitude this way. So we want to make sure that we get everything all set right. And everything initially is just rough tacked in, so, and then you double and triple check all your measurements before you commit to doing the welding. So that's a good amount of work that's got to be done, and we'll make another video of that next Monday or Tuesday. We're going to try to do 2, maybe 3 videos a week if we can do more, but it takes a lot of time to do it. And I appreciate you watching the videos, and please subscribe still, tell your friends. We still want to grow the channel. We're almost up to 33,000 subscribers. We want to get to 100,000 subscribers. So that's only going to help, only going to happen if you help out by telling everybody. We're doing this as it's going to be like a life's work thing. And, you know, I've been playing around with doing Jaguar stuff and all this other stuff, but this is, I think, a really good comprehensive medium for people to learn from, because most people are doing restoration, and we're going to do all aspects of this, not just the sheet metal. Everything we possibly can cover, we will cover on this Scout, and hopefully we'll have a nice Scout at the end, and probably sell the Scout at the end. I don't know, we got a couple more we can do. All right, so that's all we're going to do tonight. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you keep watching. It's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop. Please subscribe, give us the like, some comments, tell your friends, and remember, there's now, I think we got like 206 videos or something. Go to the video tab on the home page. It's Pro Shaper on YouTube. Hit that video tab, and they're all there, the 206 or 8 videos or whatever. They're all in chronological order. So I'm not just doing Scouts. There's all kinds of really good information there. So tell all your friends, and keep watching, and remember that metal is clay.